rough day at the office. They let me dress casually. They didn't work me to the grindstone. How you doing, babe?
Fine, I guess.
Good, good. Well, I'm gonna go to the den, get some reading done, and then dinner's 7 like normal.
Jim, you don't care about me anymore.
Well, I just literally like 2 seconds ago asked you how you're doing. Sign of caring. Not sure.
You know what? You always do this. Why don't you just go back to your den or just do whatever?
Forget the den. I'll just eat at the bar tonight.
We're laughing now, but how many of us have been in that situation before? I didn't even ask for a show of hands, but that's great that you got it. That shows that it definitely reciprocated. You know, many of us have been in Manvi's situation where we've said, why is he not reading my nonverbal cues? Or in Jim's situation, wondering at how we could get such a hostile response from a seemingly innocuous question. But even though we have not all might have been in that situation that Manvi and Jim might have been in, all of us have been in a situation where we might have had an issue dealing with members of the opposite sex. So in strategic communications class, we learn about the importance of being able to project our ideas and communicate effectively with other people. So in a way to be able to do that more effectively, we'd like to introduce gender communication techniques. And so today, we're going to be talking to you about some of the gender-related communication barriers that we've come across and identify them. Then, we're going to talk about some possible recommendations to help you rectify those gender communication barriers. And then we're going to stop off by taking action and maybe replaying the scenario we just saw by actually applying some of those techniques that we just learned. So let's get things started. Let's talk about a few communication barriers. Ying, if you're stressed as a woman, how do you feel?
Well, I cannot speak for all women, but if you're not feeling the same way, treat it as an example. As a woman, if I'm stressed out, I want to talk. I want to communicate my feelings, not to get suggestions, not criticism, and I just want to get reassurance. I want to hear things such as, well, I know you're going through a tough time, but everything is going to be okay. So how about guys, Mark?
That's really interesting, Ying, because I think I'm a lot of the opposite. You know, as a guy, if I come back and I'm very stressed, I feel like I need to be left alone. I need to retreat back to my cave, get my head straight, and come back and get into the groove of things with a better mind on my shoulders. So we see that there's a little bit difference in how we act when we're stressed. How about the way that we like to be feeling in a relationship?
Well, I definitely want to feel special. It does not have to be complicated or expensive. For example, something as simple as a hug and something as inexpensive as $5 flowers from the farmer's market, that will all work. It doesn't matter what you do. What matters is the signals you send. How about guys?
Well, that's really interesting to know. From a guy's perspective, I just feel like I need to be needed. You know, it's not that I want to be in a needy relationship. It's not that I need to feel that I'm always being acknowledged, but just to know that I'm still of use. You know, sometimes it gets into the situation where you just go through the daily grind of things and you forget the importance of appreciation. But speaking of which, in relationships, what do you think women are like?
Women are likened to be waves, so sometimes we are happy, and sometimes not so much so. It's natural, we are not crazy. And I suspect women's emotional cycle has something to do with a typical behavior guys do when they're in relationships. You want to talk about that, Mark?
Well, it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because when I'm in a relationship, or any type of relationship for that matter, you know, I consider myself more like a rubber band. Sometimes I want to be very close, but other times I need to step back and have a little bit of free space, some autonomy. That doesn't mean I don't care, it just means I need a little bit of free time to myself. And I'm sorry if that makes you feel crazy. But let's talk a little bit further about some possible best practices and recommendations that we could go about in being able to address some of these communication barriers that result between the genders. So Why don't we start off? Ying, would you like to talk about one of these recommendations?
Sure. First one, if you are in a fight, do not panic. Always remember to stay on your side of the net. That means if you are the person who feels hurt and you want to express your feelings, be very careful not to blame the other person. On the other side, if you are the person who's taking the complaints, be careful that the other person is not trying to personally attack you. There are 4 important words that you all need to remember. It's not your fault. It works wonders. Try it next time. It might save your life. The second tip is to practice empathy. Here at Stanford, we talk about empathy all the time. But the key is to practice, practice, and practice. So how to do that? Just as a quick reminder, here at the base, we need to build up understanding and respect for our differences. And up on this base, we want to have good techniques. We want to listen well, and we want to ask questions to validate whether we got the message right. And last, most importantly, we want to give the reassurance. Everything is fine, I hear you. But there's one more really important thing. Mark will talk about that.
Sure. Now, the first 2 rules you should be aware of, especially if you're at the GSB and have taken touchy-feely, practice empathy, stay on your side of the net. But there's a third important rule that I think we need to go over, and when it comes to the importance of gender communication, and that is the golden rule. More specifically, do not practice the golden rule. What is the golden rule? Do unto others as you would like to be done unto yourself. Now, I hope you've seen throughout this presentation a lot of times that the needs of one gender might not necessarily be the same needs of the other gender. We all have different needs. We all have different ways in which we process information, and that's most certainly true between the genders. So when it comes to being able to communicate with a member of the opposite gender, put yourself in that person's shoes and realize that their needs might not be the same needs that you may have. So we've talked about a few of the issues that result from gender communication. We've shared a few recommendations. But what good are they if we don't see them practiced? So why don't we go over the scenario that we first went over when we started this presentation and apply some of these techniques with a few commentary.
They sure do let me dress casual, but they work my ass off. How you doing, babe?
Fine, I guess.
You sure? You seem like you want to talk about something.
Here, Jim uses empathy to gauge Manvi's emotions and realize that her nonverbal cues is what he should be paying attention to.
Actually, you know what, Jim? Sometimes I feel that you don't appreciate me anymore. I mean, I know that you're busy at work and things like that, but when you come back home and walk straight to the den, I feel like you don't want to talk to me anymore.
And Manvi ups the ante by staying on her side of the net. She doesn't attribute her upsetness to his behavior, but rather to the emotions.
I had no idea I was making you feel that way. I literally worked so hard just to, as an effort to try to make you happy. Why don't we, screw the den. Let's go get dinner and see that movie that you've been wanting to see.
That's so sweet of you, Jim.
Jim knocked it off the ballpark by actually not forgetting the golden rule and actually doing something that he knew Manvi wanted to do rather than what he might have wanted to do. But watch him really knock it out of the park.
I was literally just thinking today how lucky I am just to be with you. Literally maybe the luckiest man in the world.
Oh, Jim.
All right.
Now, if only there was some, action item I could do to make sure that I remember these best practices when we're in the heat of the battle.
Right.
Some kind of acronym or something.
Acronym, right. Acronym. Right, it's so easy. S-E-G, SEG. S for stay on your side of the net. E for empathize with your partner's feelings. And lastly, G, for the golden rule.
No, you always get it wrong. You don't want to follow the golden rule. It should be S. The golden rule is out. So, any questions about sex?